We haven't done this in so long.
It's so long. All right.
Welcome back to another. Okay, ready?
We're back. Welcome to a
welcome.
new episode of What Teachers Have to Say. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Jake, and we have taken a hiatus, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about. What are we talking about? What did we talk about?
Dude, we talked about so much stuff.
We are going to talk about being a whole human being as a teacher. We're going to talk about burnout, like our own. We're going to talk about rediscovery. We're going to talk about where have they been for 6 months?
Career shifts.
Career changes.
New projects that are awesome.
Ooh, free PDF on when students should be using AI.
Lots of artificial intelligence tools in this one.
Yeah, we did. We didn't mean to, but we ended up talking some really
specific
specifics of ways that teachers can use AI direct in line with students, which we haven't done.
No, we haven't.
Nope. And then make sure you listen all the way to the end because we have some pretty exciting news about where this podcast is going and what we're doing.
Yep. We're glad to be back.
It's really good to be back. Off we go.
You know, last year was so intense.
Dude.
I was doing induction, really like trying to get out there and do a lot of professional development, do a lot of consulting work. Like it really was taking on so much, and I would really kind of lost the reasons for why I was doing it.
Yeah,
so
let's
actually like going
this.
back
Okay, ready?
to go back.
In your second year of full-time teaching,
Right.
You
third year.
became a consultant
Right.
for artificial intelligence, traveled the country,
Yeah.
launched a podcast,
Right. Yeah.
Started teaching college-level courses.
You're making me blush.
I know. Yeah, you did a little bit. And you had already recorded, but you were editing the new album.
Yeah.
Long distance, people across the country and traveling to the... Dude, you did so much.
We did.
And induction.
It was a lot. It was a lot that year.
Yeah.
And so I guess when you have so many different competing things that are coming at you, and I want this to be relatable too, because not every teacher...
Is a metalhead?
Not every teacher has a band. Not
no, but
every
it gets
teacher
to the heart of, like we say this, like you get to be a whole human being.
That's true.
You get to be a whole human being as a teacher. Everybody tries to say you don't.
You do.
But you do, but I cut you off. I'm sorry.
But no, I think that like, you know, for example, I mean, just trade out being in a band with having a family. I haven't started a family yet.
Yeah.
So it's like everyone has all of these responsibilities that they have in their lives. And teaching takes so much out of you. Like you really have to be so present. And if you really want to do it, you have to show up every day and really put all of your intellect and some of your emotions, as we've talked about this entire podcast, to really be an effective teacher, you have to build on relationship.
Yeah. And
that can really be overwhelming when you have all of these other things that are demanding your attention too.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I just started to get so burned out. I needed to step back and recenter, especially for like, why are we doing this podcast?
Yeah.
Why am I still teaching? Do I want to go back to music and do that full time? So it was really kind of a reassess situation and really scaling back. So it was really helpful for me to take a break. And I mean, it was good timing in terms of taking a break for you too. You were doing a whole career shift, this dude. As you had a new book come out.
Yeah.
You've been doing keynotes. You've been doing so much professional development. And I mean leading professional development. You're moving into much higher roles in EduProtocols after your book has come out. I don't know how much you want to talk about that, but it's all so exciting.
It is
He's
exciting.
got another book in the works, you guys.
Yeah, I'm meeting with the publisher soon. So... Yeah, like
you had a priority shift.
I was sad to take a break, but I was like, no, it was good to take a break.
Yeah,
I missed the podcast, but I'm so glad we're back.
Me too.
But yeah, like my EduProtocols ELA book published on the 24th of June, right? And it was like the reception was so incredible. I'm so lucky, right? Keynoting and delivering professional development all across the country. We're heading to Canada soon. just so many amazing things. For the first time in my career, I left the classroom.
Yeah, stepped out of the classroom, people. That's why we're shooting in my classroom.
For people that are watching this, like we are now in a different location.
Yep.
Mr. Card doesn't have a classroom.
I know.
I have an office.
It's wild.
So I got an amazing job at the County Office of Education, and I'm an ed tech coach. They hired me specifically for artificial intelligence and EduProtocols. Like I get to do classroom takeovers and. This is bizarre. The English teacher, this is bizarre. This English teacher
yes,
has a title. I am the CSCOE champion.
So I've been calling him the King of the North.
The King of the North.
But
I am
he's taking his rightful
the Computer
throne.
Science County Office of Education champion for all 11 counties of the North State.
Wow.
Of California. Yeah. So like
King of the North, man.
Yeah. The English teacher is now teaching people how to do robotics and coding and integrating that into the classroom. It's crazy. I love it.
Yeah.
I miss my people.
Yeah.
I love being back here in your room. I really missed you.
I missed you too. Yeah.
Like teacher besties, that's a thing, right?
It really is.
Trench warfare.
It really is. When you're
Foxhole
in the trenches,
friend. No, it's true.
When you're in the trenches with your friends, it certainly makes the trenches a lot better.
Yeah.
Because the trenches are
The
gonna be
trenches
the
are
trenches.
hard.
The trench is gonna trench.
A trench, you're gonna trench.
So yeah, you really need your teacher besties, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And coming back to my role as an educator, because I didn't shift anywhere, but I wanted to do it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And coming back really to find those reasons was like, okay, why do I want to keep teaching? Why do I want to keep teaching? I really needed to answer that question for myself. So it was like, to be honest, it has to do with having fun. And the gateway to having fun, I think, is teaching skills and building relationships, of course. But the way you build relationships, I think in a teaching model that works the best is like actually have some value in what you're talking about. Like that, maybe that saying it that way sounds kind of aggressive, but it's like, here is a real skill. Here is a real issue in the world.
Yeah.
Here's a real skill that would really help you. And I'm here and I'm ready to talk about it and to play with these ideas and to work on these things with you.
Yeah.
And like just approaching teaching from that very, very genuine place. I've always been a pretty genuine teacher. The performative aspect of it, the veil is pretty thin with me. But coming back and really being like, I've been lucky enough to teach the same thing several years in a row now.
Right.
And I built my own program for my college level English class that I do a lot of work with AI in, and that's kind of just cruising. And so I get to really walk into the classroom and start teaching, like, here's a text, here are protocols. So even if it's not EduProtocols, which some of the things that I do are,
right,
but some of them are just really modified versions or my own kind of thing. It's just like having a sequence of steps to do the same thing to get at the knowledge faster.
And I love, like, so many of your students have come back.
Yeah.
Right? Like my daughter's one of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Oh man. Awesome. Love my daughter. She's a rebel. But I remember she hated how much AI you were doing. She's like, this is disingenuous. This is,
Yeah.
And now, like,
really
after she got through that whole thing,
yeah.
Like, it's hard to hear it from me as her dad,
of course.
right? But no, now that she's like off and doing some community college and working and things like that, she's like, oh man, she's like, yeah, Colin's actually taught me some really important skills.
Oh, that's sweet.
And then it's those skills. And I think it's so interesting that, the last episode that we dropped was all about skills.
Yep.
Right, 56 deltas, and in that podcast, I was like, I should really write a book about it. And now that book is done.
Ooh, this is the
quote,
unreleased,
quote, done.
Talking with the publisher book.
Yeah,
it's exciting, man.
And it is really focused on skills over content.
Yep.
Right.
That's where we have to
and
move.
especially like moving into AI. So I don't want to just talk about the book, but the beginning of it is all about the shift that's coming our way with artificial intelligence, right? It's changing everything. And if the experts are close in what they say, we're looking at like 20 to 50 years of rolling changes.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, we're going to make a shift because the internet's happening. So we're going to learn how to do that and then we'll be fine. No, like we got to tool these kids up with those foundational skills that don't change. We can always go back. Problem solving, critical thinking, plan awareness, you know, how to synergize information, how to make a plan of, you know, multi-step, all of these things, and use content to do it. But
definitely. No, I mean, I love some of those skills just to kind of bring
breaking orthodoxies.
Breaking orthodoxies.
That was my favorite one from that episode.
Was the most punk of the the most metal of the skills.
Gen Z's got that one down.
Yeah, they have that one.
We don't have to teach that one.
Teach that one too hard. But actually, even embracing that as a thing that is good, I think is surprising. My students are always, I think, really surprised when I'm like, yeah, absolutely, you should question everything I give you.
Well, and so much that, like, we've talked about it a lot, but I was just listening to Sam Altman.
Yep.
Right, CEO of OpenAI. This came out in January on one of Adam Grant's podcasts.
Love Adam Grant.
And he reiterated what we've been saying. He's like, you know, it's not about how intelligent you are anymore. It's can you ask the right question?
Right. Not how much do you know.
Not how much do you know, but can you find the proper information? Can you sift through all of it?
Can you ask the right question? So then, how are we teaching kids to ask questions?
I know.
When are we actually even doing that?
Yeah.
So
literally on your board.
Literally on my board right over here, I have what I call a questioning protocol, also known as the Wicked Hydra. I like to make it a little more free form because just to see what they'll do. Yeah. Sometimes they cross-pollinate and make it a mind map. Sometimes they just like come up with a list of questions about each general topic. So if you aren't familiar with the Wicked Hydra protocol, definitely look that up.
Yeah, I've got tutorials out there all over.
It's all about how to form good questions.
I think it's becoming more and more important.
I think
and along with that, like maybe it's the slant of somebody who loves reading and writing, but vocabulary building, I think our vocabulary as a culture group has shrunk.
Right. Google Speak.
We've Google Speak. You know, terrifying moment a couple of years ago when like the little auto text came out in the bottom of Gmail when it was like, do you want to just hit this button and say, you know?
Yep.
And
sounds good.
Sounds good. Ding. And I knew somebody who worked in acquisitions at Google. I still know them. And I was able to reach out and ask her this question. And I was like, hey, I might have talked to this on the podcast already, but I was like, I'm really curious, like, by putting those there, people are going to read it as if I wrote it, and that will shift their usage of language in the future, right? And so I was like, I wonder, by putting those options there, do you understand that over 15 years or whatever, you are going to be narrowing the scope of human language?
Yep.
You know what she said? Yes. Yeah, no, she said because of natural language and algorithmic training.
Yep.
Because if they can narrow the possibilities, AI will do better. And this was 4, 5, 6 years ago.
Exactly.
That had this conversation.
So this is the thing. This just came up in my class this week. We were talking about, you know, we're easing our way into artificial intelligence and some of those practices. We haven't queued everything up just yet. It's early in the semester.
Yeah.
But we started talking about artificial intelligence, where it exists and how it shapes our understanding of the world.
Okay.
How it processes information. And everybody's like, you know, has some knowledge of deep fakes and of misinformation. But they didn't know, and they actually were like, no, that can't be real. And I was like, artificial intelligence has been deciding what you see, what information you get on your feed the whole time. So you need to understand how you've been training your artificial intelligence your entire life. Every time you've interacted with a platform.
I wonder if teachers are doing that, you know, and also like AGI, ANI, right? Artificial narrow intelligence. We're starting to have to talk about that.
Yeah, all the
They're
different
predicting
kinds.
the prediction on this podcast that Sam Altman was at today. It wasn't him doing the prediction. Don't get me wrong on that one. But the prediction is that we will hit AGI in 2025, and it will go generally unnoticed.
Yeah. I feel like that is the most
Crazy.
the most confusing part to me.
Yep.
Because it's like, this is the telegraph of our time. This is the iPhone of our time.
The
This
plow,
is
the all of it.
This is I mean, even more related to like actual industry, because artificial intelligence is going to change how things are made, how ideas are created, how people get jobs, how workers do their work.
Oh, I literally saw that they're predicting. I can't cite it out of my brain. They're kind of predicting that the resume is dead.
Yeah.
Did you see this?
I have seen that.
The resume is dead because everybody, rightfully so, is like running it through ChatGPT saying like, align my resume to fit this job description. Right. And so people are like looking perfect on paper, where that was supposed to be the original vetting process. And then you had them come in for an interview and you're like, oh, okay, it is real.
Yes.
And so they're moving away to where there's like no resume. You like apply to a job, and if you have the qualifications, you get this like an asynchronous video.
Whoa.
And so it just like asks you questions. You have to videotape your responses, and that's the first round.
Yep. You know what it reminds me of though, and what I think is going to happen?
1984.
A little bit. It's a little dystopian, but it's also, I think that move is going to push us to return to skills.
Yeah.
And what I mean is
authentic.
Can you do the thing?
Can you do the thing?
I don't know if I've mentioned this on this podcast before, but my dad was a machinist. So he learned G-code, coding language, could program CNC machines. He learned all of these things on the job. He was a manual machinist for many years, which means literally turning the knobs on the machine to make the part the right size, right? Like fully custom. And whenever he would get a new job, there wasn't really like an interview process. He didn't have a degree in machining. He didn't graduate high school. But what it was all of that on the job training and all of those skills.
Yeah.
And he's a very divergent thinking person. So he could solve a lot of really intricate machining problems. So whenever he got a new job, machining is kind of a niche thing these days, but he'd walk in and it's just like, can you set up this machine? Show me right now. Like that, like the owner of the machine shop. Like that's almost what I think all jobs will end up returning to, where
almost
it's just
like game recognizes game.
Exactly. Like, hey, here, I have this thing that I'm working on right now. Can you solve this problem for me? Can you do this?
Yeah.
Can you make this illustration? Can you craft this image? Can you make this prediction?
Like portfolio base.
Yeah.
Right? Like show me the breadth of your work, not just numbers about your work, not just words about your work. Like show me your work.
And I think that's why career training is getting so popular in high schools now. Yeah. Like CTE pathways in California are very, very popular. Career and technical education. So that at my school, formerly your school, we have several of these pathways, like a medical pathway robust. And a communication technology and computers, like coding pathways, where kids can actually learn real marketable skills through taking classes while they're still in high school. That kind of forward thinking is where I think education absolutely needs to go.
Absolutely. But I love that. A return to skill. I think it's super important. I think that one of those skills is how to work with AI. Yes. Not be worked by. Yes. Right? And like for me, I've been really hesitant to do any kind of a training on student facing AI models. Yeah. Right. It is definitely in the sketchy area of things. I was really lucky in my classroom here to be able to do that in an explorative way. Same. You know, like you do, very, very much like that. But I've been really hesitant to train teachers how to use AI with their students. In front of their students, totally different.
Yeah.
But I've changed my tune. I think there's been enough advancements in some of the platforms that are out there, right? Like, you know, the big ones, Brisk, MagicSchool, SchoolAI, Khan
SchoolAI.
Academy. Like, there's some really great things that teachers can begin using with students because they all use an AI.
Yeah.
Maybe not the babies, but like, they all, right?
They do.
Start hitting it head on, right? And so like I did make a thing. Ta-da! Right? It's here. It's available.
Is this your newsletter?
This is part of my. Oh, we're going to talk about the newsletter.
I'm just.
So I will say, if you go to mrcarontheweb.com and happen to provide an email address for the newsletter, you will be receiving shortly this PDF.
Ooh,
So I made a brochure.
that's beautiful.
I made a brochure in partnership with the county office, right? So it was like my work, and then I was like, oh, this works really well as my role, and so I made this brochure. But I'm rambling. But what it is 10 times students should be using artificial intelligence, and 5 times when they should not.
Yeah.
Right? Starting to give some guidance around that, and so like just. You know, and like we won't go over all of these, but like I said, it'll be coming out through the website and through things like that. But so it's like, I love this one, like ×2 use it to get unstuck. Right?
Yeah.
Don't have it right for you.
No.
But literally the verbiage here, when struggling with a sentence, idea, or problem, AI can suggest ways to move forward, but ensure that the final work is your own. I do that all the time.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
Where I'm like, oh, hey, what are some ways that I could go in the next, you know, from here? Does it all the time.
I use it constantly. For
I love this one, to summarize big readings, get an overview, then follow up with the original text, right? So my wife is finishing a master's degree.
Yep.
If you know my wife, she's doing a 2-year master's degree in academic leadership in 1 year because that's her amazing.
That's Julie.
She's freaking amazing. But so she, you know, she's got big readings on law and all these academic leadership things, and she learned very early to like put them into Google Notebook LM. This awesome thing
Notebook LM,
to create a podcast from it, and then she'll listen to the podcast, like an 8 to 12 minute little podcast.
If you haven't tried this, it is wild.
And that just gives her a little bit of a framework, and then she goes in and reads the journal article or the whatever that is.
God, that's so
and so
good.
it's like she's doing pre-reading.
Yeah. By having the AI parse the information.
And so like now she's moving
create a
towards her
podcast
research
about it.
focus of this, which I'm super excited.
Yeah.
I didn't even tell you. She's looking at the gap between teachers receiving professional development and putting that into play. And she's a salty teacher. She's been at this game for 19 years. She knows about garbage PD.
Oh, yeah.
And so she's really researching like what does good PD look like, professional development,
Right.
and how do you get it to translate into action specifically for response to intervention?
Whoa.
That's what she's doing.
That's such a rad.
You know, she's been working on her lit
thesis.
review and all this stuff, and she has now batched all these different segments that she has to learn about. She's gotten like 6 or 12 journal articles and pieces of research per thing, created a podcast for each one.
Dude.
And then so she's
I
listening to it.
remember when you showed that to me, I was like, this is a powerful
then
thing. But to
diving
know
in.
that someone's using that to help them with their master's
just
level
to
work.
like understand
Amazing.
the outer scope of it, and then dive into that's the part that's the thing,
That's
right?
it.
And so I think of the fear from a lot of teachers, and I think it's a justifiable fear because we don't know how we're moving through this. We're still in the Wild West of AI.
Yep, definitely.
The fear is students are going to have AI summarize the information and call it good.
Right.
And I agree with that fear.
Definitely don't want that.
But to like have it summarize, and then that becomes your inroad into more difficult tasks. Yeah. I love that.
That's amazing.
Right? So that was another one. I also had
scaffolding.
AI
is the ultimate scaffold. That's what
dude,
I've said,
the ultimate scaffold. To self-check your work. That's one of her on here. I love teaching students to like, look, you did this thing. It's great. If the teacher gave you a rubric or some kind of grading scaffold, put both of them into AI and grade yourself.
And so just another tool that I've used with students a lot recently was SchoolAI. In SchoolAI, you can actually like go in, you can load texts into it, PDFs, the same way that you can do with Claude, and have it use that for content knowledge. And then you can have it like interview.
You have to tell the story.
With the students. I should tell the story.
You have to tell the story.
So anyway, the point I wanted to make before I jump into the story is that like you get a readout of their whole transcript. Like you can see the whole conversation
SchoolAI is great.
that the student had with the AI that you can't with the ChatGPTs and the Claudes. Even though those are the tools, and you should definitely be learning how to use those tools, SchoolAI is kind of the nice training wheels, because then I can double check your actual prompts.
Yeah.
And some students are just so like simple, like explain this.
Yeah. What dis?
Simpler. Simpler, more simple. Like there was one that was just like in all caps, more simple. Like it was so funny to watch. But okay, so the story that was just so beautiful, like this is the possibilities that open up when you're starting to use AI for learning, is that we were doing Plato's Republic, and we were comparing Plato's Republic to Aristotle and how they think about art and what function art should have in society.
Yeah, because
most high school kids are ready for that. But this is what I'm saying.
This is the pre-work to then relating it to AI.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is where the ultimate scaffold is. So it was like, go talk to this AI that I have loaded up with this information and trained to interview you, because you get to kind of go back and forth with it, make sure that it's giving what you want.
And do I remember you trained it to behave as if it were Plato?
No, I trained it to synthesize Plato and Aristotle and ask questions related to that. So it would model the process of synthesis in terms of your thought.
If a listener hasn't tried this with SchoolAI, MagicSchool has an option too, but we're just more familiar with the SchoolAI version. It's not hard to set up.
It's so easy, and students don't even need an account.
No,
you can just send the link. I know we should get sponsored by SchoolAI. They're amazing,
and I like them as people. We got to meet them.
They're super cool.
I digress. I took you off track.
Anyway,
back to baking.
So this was like this high-level synthesis AI for Aristotle and Plato, and help them understand these texts. And this student was like, "Okay, I understand that you want to talk about this, but what would really help me understand this issue is baking." And the AI was like, no. And I went through this transcript in detail. I read the whole thing, and it was like this student chipped away at this AI for probably an hour to try to get it to relate concepts from Plato and Aristotle to baking cupcakes. And eventually he was actually able to get the AI to break and to give him a cupcake recipe, which he then made those cupcakes and brought them to class the next day for us to enjoy while we discussed this. It was so rad. It was a high point.
Well, and I remember you called me, or we were getting coffee or something like that, and you were so excited.
So good.
Because do I remember correctly that he was like, "Yeah, I broke it," instead of doing my work?
He did both.
And you were like, "No, bro, like you understand this material way better than you would have."
Because he had to get that. He was like, "All right, I see that Plato does this, but that I really want to. How does that relate to
sprinkles.
Cupcakes?"
Yeah.
It was just like, well, and this is where it started to break, which was so cool. It was just like, well, I could see that if you were making a recipe and if you put these different ingredients together, but that was a metaphor for this part of the text. Like, it was so cool. And it was just something I never could have foreseen happening that came out of using AI to teach a text to students. And the knowledge that he ended up having to leverage in order to break the AI and get it to make Plato's cupcakes, which is what we call them. It was.
They were delicious and a little bit dry.
It was truly incredible. They were a little dry. he was actually like, nah, these cupcakes are fine. They're Play-Doh's cupcakes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But yeah, there's playful moments like that. And I think that people are so afraid of it that you don't get at the play. And you don't see the potential if you stay there.
And once again, not task-based.
Right.
Right? It wasn't like, I need you to do X, Y, and Z so that you can produce this thing.
Exactly.
Right? It was like...
Actually, the instructions were, go have a conversation
Go have a
with
conversation.
us. Yeah.
Yeah. Learning to like... Yeah.
And the AI was prompted enough where it would ask questions I wanted it to ask about the texts. But I was like, go have a try to answer the questions like that it will give you, have a conversation with it to see what your content knowledge really is.
And I love also going back to like the teacher meta side of it, like that SchoolAI, maybe the other ones do too, but I know SchoolAI gave you like your roster and it was color coded with like an emoji or something.
Yeah, it also will show you
like how well they understood it.
Yeah, whoever is like interacting with the AI, it gives you sort of a summary overview too. Like this student is off topic, which was the cupcake one. Student, they were like, or this student is like really engaged in understanding the text more. Like, it gives one was
like they're frustrated about these things. Like that was in there.
Yep. So it gives you sort of if you want to have that kind of like broad overview of if you're wanting to do it as an in-class activity, you can see the overview of where every student is and then punch in
such a good
the kids
tool
that are struggling.
But it's reasons like that where I'm like, okay, like I am ready to start doing that, like training teachers on student facing AI things. I love it.
The technology is there, the platforms are ready.
They are.
That's where we're going,
and they're going to change and they're going to do all those things, but this is where I'm almost like pick your pony. Like choose that one thing that you're going to do. Maybe it's SchoolAI, MagicSchool, Brisk, whatever it is. And just almost put blinders on for a little while. Like just do that one. Maybe there's something that another one does really, really well, but just learn one.
Yeah. I think that's necessary. It's needed right now. Yeah.
There's so many another one is learning Genie. You're gonna start hearing a lot from me about learning Genie. They've been around for a while, but they use AI to plan units.
Whoa!
And so like we've heard about like lesson planning and things like that, but it's so good. It's so good. And we're actually with EduProtocols, we're integrating into it, so it will just fully plan EduProtocols into your workflow for like a 6-week unit.
What?
Yeah, we'll talk more about that one. But to go back, like. We've talked about so many times students should be using AI. But there are definitely times where students should not be using AI, right? I think this one is key when foundational knowledge is required. And this is, I think, the one that we have a gut reaction of fear towards.
I think that is it. That's where it comes from.
Because I can go, I am not sportsy. You're going to laugh at me. I needed to create a game using a Bee-bot robot. It's like this little bee that you code for like first, second, and third graders. This tiny little thing. But this is your new job. This is my new job. This is today. We had an open house, and so we really wanted to showcase what we were doing for like the directors of the county, right? Like high-level people were coming. Superintendent, things like that. And so they were like, can you make a game with Bee-bot and it is tailgate party themed because of football season? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I know sports ball like the rest of them, right? But I had enough foundational knowledge, especially in how robotics works. I created a playbook.
What?
It was 5 famous historical plays from like the 1960s to present. And I created a reading excerpt and then how to code the play with the little bee. And so like so like you set like defenders up on this grid and then the bee like went forward and turned and avoided them and got across the goal line, right? And so but back to like foundational knowledge, right? I know almost nothing about football. To me, football is like soccer. Okay. But I was asked to do this.
Spent a lot of time in Amsterdam.
So much time in Amsterdam. Met the footballer. But my knowledge of coding, my knowledge of teaching, my knowledge of scaffolding, my knowledge of what's required for instructions.
Yep.
All of that, I then leveraged AI. And I was like, the first thing I said was like, I need to know 10 of the most famous historic football plays. I don't understand football. I don't know them. Help me figure this part out. And it was like, oh, here's a bunch of them. And I'm like, well, why are those interesting? Oh, here's reasons. And then like I went out on the web and I was looking up the name of these plays. You know, like I learned about, you know, like the Hail Mary. Like I didn't know that that was an actual real play.
Oh.
I just thought it was like when you throw
amazing.
Something really far.
Yeah, right.
No, it's because when he threw it so far, he like said a Hail Mary to himself. I didn't know that. Okay.
That's amazing.
And so, but I was able to like fact check the piece that I didn't know.
Yeah.
But all the other skills that I had, I built a whole playbook, and then all these like directors are up there coding and laughing and cheering touchdown when the bee goes across the table.
That's amazing.
It was awesome.
So,
but the fear is that
skill.
The fear is this goes back to Guitar Hero.
Right.
Right? Yeah, you're amazing at Guitar Hero. You don't know how to play a guitar.
Right.
Yeah, I can create marketing content or like economical, like economy and stock portfolio content. I know nothing about it. Mm-hmm. Right. And so this is where I really coach students and teachers, like as we move into this new way, we really have to focus on where we want to be experts. We can't be, we can be generalists, right? We have to be generalists because we live in a society of generalists. Mm-hmm. But I know that I don't have to know everything there is to know about the stock market.
Right.
There are other people that are experts in that. I'm going to be an expert in teaching, pedagogy, you know, the convergence of AI with students, these kinds of things. Yep. And so, but why should students not use AI if foundational knowledge is required? Because they have to build that foundation.
Right.
And like the only way to become an expert is through the hard work.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I relate this back to music to come really full circle with this conversation.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, when I was on tour, you see a lot of collaboration between the generations in underground music and heavy music especially, where it's just like you have younger bands that are doing their thing, but they don't know everything. You need to have a lot of foundational knowledge. Like, for example, don't break your drum kit down on stage.
I would never know that.
Right? Okay.
I remember
so
when
it's
you
like,
told me like
no,
these heavy
don't
singers
take your, like
that's because of modulation. And
right.
Like if
heavy
you're some
vocals,
teenager with a microphone reproducing that sound,
exactly,
you're going to harm yourself.
Don't blow your vocal cords out. Like if you want to do distorted, heavy punk metal vocals, you need to get the tone first, not the volume. The tone doesn't come from volume. Like these kinds of things
is
where
that
you're
expert
just like
knowledge that they don't
expert
know.
knowledge that they don't have, that you can't find outside of, you know, what you would call a community of practice.
Yep.
Where you need to have those connections, I think, to get the foundational knowledge. And I think almost that's like where the fun comes in and where the relationship piece comes in, because foundational knowledge should be like, hey, you know, do you want to be a scientist today? Same kind of way as like, hey, you want to be a punk rocker today? Like, you want to know how to play shows, or do you want to know how to figure things out in the physical world, really create a hypothesis, create an experiment, conduct that experiment, you know, that kind of experiential learning. Yeah. I think that's why I'm really, really not afraid of AI, because every like knowledge community has a community to it. And that's where that's where it's exciting, you know? Like if you that's where you build skills through, and that foundational knowledge through imparting it in a community.
Once again, back to relationship.
Once again, back to relationship, and once
we've
again
always,
to like
we
why
have
teaching is fun.
Always said AI in a classroom is going to allow us to be more human.
Yes, exactly.
As teachers.
Yeah, because it'll help students learn, well, like it'll help students evaluate themselves, like we've talked about. It'll help students scaffold to get to knowledge faster, because the material conditions of the modern classroom can be pretty bleak.
Yeah.
You know, you're not really, as much as we talk about relationship, you're not going to be able to build relationships super effectively with every kid in a classroom that has almost 40 students in it. That's just not a reasonable ask. But if you can offload a lot of your overwhelm to artificial intelligence to help you inform your teaching practice.
Especially that DOK level 1 knowledge, it's so good. And I love when we were chatting before we started recording, you said the way that your students in your college level high school English, right?
Right.
It's crossover.
It's high school students.
By the time you're reading their essays, they're good.
Yeah, for one, I leverage AI feedback, and I have a series of prompts that I crafted with students to be like, how does this work? If we tweak this, does this work? And so that was it's prompt engineering 101. And then we do peer review. So they read each other's papers, and then they learn, what's good about another student's writing and what they should work on in their own writing. They learn from each other. And then by the time those drafts get to me, and they're super readable and interesting. And then that's where I really roll up my sleeves and give
as the expert,
the super intense page and a half of feedback.
Yeah.
But that's the one time that I do it. That's where I, earn my paycheck, I say.
Yeah.
But it's just that's where I really give you the feedback but it's meaningful to you at that point too, because you've also done it as a community. We've done it together. We've built a writing community that's focused on researching something that's interesting to you. And
there's been some really interesting topics.
It's been really fun.
This really enjoyed that class. This is now the sixth time you've taught the course, maybe? Fifth?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Fifth. Yeah. They're all semester model, but with high school students.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm telling you. It's called a dual enrollment. Lots of different states have different versions of it, but in California, that's what it's called. And it's just high school students will impress you
if you open up space.
If you open the space. And honestly, last semester, I had a lot of students that were not ready for the class, but they got there because you open the space, you give them the scaffolding they need, you build the relationship, you give them an opportunity to do something interesting, learn skills that are clearly valuable.
Yeah.
Learn how to ask questions, learn how to use AI.
So many good things. While still being a writing course.
Yep.
I love it.
We went everywhere today.
We went everywhere, but we promised big news. We do have good news.
We did.
So we're back, and we're going to make a couple of shifts to the way the podcast is working. I'm really excited about them.
Yeah.
So what can you expect? Don't stop listening right now. So here's the thing. We will be putting out our traditional episodes once a month, probably near the beginning of the month.
Interviews and long discussions.
We got some neat stuff coming up too. We're going to Stanford again.
Yep, that'll be the next one.
Yeah,
we're going to the Stanford Summit. If you haven't watched that episode from last year, the Stanford Summit was fantastic, really interesting, and it does seem that I don't know if they listen to our podcast, but they've seem to have taken some of our advice, and there's more educators there.
Emails that made it sound like they actually somebody listened to the episode.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
we've got that coming up, and then the new thing is, of course, we'll push clips out on social media. That's fine, but I'm going to start recording weekly short episodes.
Yeah, Jake has some really amazing.
They're going to be
ideas.
Yeah, they're going to be audio only. One of the ones I've recorded already, I just grabbed somebody from our induction program and went for a walk.
Yeah.
Somebody who's been working with pre-service and mentor veteran teachers for years, talking about how to move into the spring. right? So it's going to be short, audio only. And then I'm really excited about this. We're going to be opening up SpeakPipe. Okay, so if you're listening to this and you're not familiar, basically in our show notes, you'll find a link to something called SpeakPipe. Go in and leave us a question or a message, because whether in our longer form comment or content or the shorter ones that we're going to be doing, we want to hear from you. So if you hear something on our podcast that you find interesting and you have a comment about it, you don't have to placate. You don't have to be all positive and nice. Right. You can, drag us in the comments.
Yep.
But we would love those. Because we're going to start integrating. We did this to build a community, and the nature of the podcast world is it's harder to build community.
It is hard.
And so please do that. Go leave a message. If you're into it, leave a bunch of them. Leave questions, leave things that you're struggling with in the classroom. And we're going to find ways to integrate those clips into what we do.
Because things are going to get real over the next few years.
So,
let's just be honest about that.
Yeah.
If we dissolve the education department, it's just going to...
Yeah, we're going to have to do a whole episode on that.
There's going to be a lot of things that could potentially change about what it looks like to be an educator in the United States.
Yeah.
And we need our teacher besties to get through that landscape together.
To speak up and to do what teachers have to say. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. So you will find us on YouTube and most of the social media platforms. Listen to us on Apple. If you like what we do, leave up to a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. Those are kind of the primary forms of podcasting right now. Yep. And if you want that PDF, find my website, sign up for the email, and we'll be sending that out with some other things. We're back!
Yeah!